Hello, everybody. It's Isaac Joseph here, and I was hoping I'm going to try to run it this way, so I'm not putting anybody on camera. I'd rather not. I don't know who's here right now, but I'm hoping that you will join us. I'm going to try to. I'm not in the best of circumstances. I don't have a room, so I have to try to be quiet and still be able to communicate to you the truth in these matters. Um, why do churches? So I'm going to wait for a few to come on if you're able to. I don't know who's on here right now, but it doesn't look like anybody made it yet. If you look in the chat, you've got all the links you need from what I plan on talking about. But a lot of people don't see it as a very serious issue. Yeah, check my queue and it works. So, I also have a post on Substack showing you why dispensationalist, pre-tribulation rapturists will join forces with amillennialist, Calvinist, and Puritans in the genocide of the end-time saints, aka the 144,000. They're going to be the tribulation saints, if you will, the set-apart ones. And the reason why I can safely say that both sides are going to join forces is because at the same time they're all going to think they're still in the millennial reign, and they're going to think we're the ones who look strange and ask, why are we still here? Now, I've had this notion prophetically for quite a while, and if you want to join forces with any of these people, you want to have them on your live streams, you want to fellowship with them and participate. Well, let me tell you something. I don't call myself a Christian anymore because of it, because all these Christians are disgusting. They've departed from the faith a long time ago, and they're determined to go the course they're going, thinking it's going to lead them to eternal life. But I'm going to tell you what, no religious tradition that excludes anything from the scriptures and chooses a tradition that suits their own lifestyle are not going to make it. I'm going to promise you that right now. And that's actually part of what this gangstalking and harassment is all about right now. The goal, like I've said before, is to turn you to the dark side. It's to turn you into one of them. And the average Christian says, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I certainly, Peter said he wouldn't deny Yehoshua, and he did, didn't he? And you still don't believe. I believe in the Bible. I wouldn't do that. Well, the Jews say they believed in the scriptures, and they were looking for every opportunity to kill Yehoshua at every bend and turn, trying to catch him in something. And before you know it, you found out they finally crucified him, only after they could find one within their own, Judas, who would take the bait and the silver, turn around, and kiss him on the cheek with a kiss of betrayal. And I'll tell you what, I don't accept kisses. I've been around all the fakes, all the dispensationalists. You listen to Paul Bagley, you listen to Emir Sephardi. They'll be your murderers if you want to follow Yahushua truly. They'll be your murderers. You think this is like way out, this guy's psychotic. You know what? I have met prominent pastors, YouTube pastors, one in Montana. I have met other pastors from the other camp in other towns out west And I'm still convinced that all of the psyops that are being played on everybody right now with the world war, the internal revolution, what they think they're going to do, I'm going to tell you one link to everything. If you want to maintain your Second Amendment rights and you think you're going to pull out a shotgun and defend yourself in this battle, you're going to lose, because they're going to disarm Americans, and because we're running out of ammunition for the Iran war, so therefore they're going to take your guns and fight the war that way. There's a lot of Second Amendment. They do have AR-15s and AK-47s, things like this, and they even have some of the old military issues. So I can tell you that's going to happen. If you're Second Amendment, you're targeted for the wrong reason. You're targeted for a political reason. You're not targeted for the purpose of Christ, Yahusha, Messiah. You're not. And 501c3 churches are sworn to the government. And I'm going to show you some of that in a moment. I'm going to read it out. All the links are in the order they appear. My article from Substack is one I want to go to first. Like I've said before, that the United States is that well-favored harlot, the mistress of witchcrafts. I'm going to put that on there right now in chat. And did you not know what? Did you not know what the mistress is in that? When you're referred as a mistress, do you think it's a good thing? Well, in America, people can't tell the difference between good and evil, so I suppose they would. But I'm going to put it in here. The word mistress comes from the Hebrew word Ba'ala. How about that? From Ba'ala. The battle in the government has always been between Baal and Moloch. Always has, always will be. And I'm trying to see where in the chat did that make it. Yeah, there it is. It made it. Ba'ala. And it didn't. Did the Hebrew come through? Yeah, I think it did. Good. It's a mistress. The mistress of witchcrafts and whoredoms of the well-favored harlot. If you look at that a little closer, you're going to find out that well-favored harlots in there, mistress of witchcrafts, and the mistress Ba'ala is also in 1 Samuel 28. We talked about that in the previous video. And it also occurred here in Nahum 3:4 and in another passage. And it's only 3 times in the Old Testament. Why do I need to worry about that? Because right here, that selleth nations and families through whoredoms and through witchcrafts. You don't think that's important? Oh, that didn't happen here. Well, if you deny it, that trafficking and exploitation and targeting and gangstalking happens, I'm almost ready to assume that you're a mistress of witchcraft. You are a Ba'ala. You help Baal carry out his agenda. You help out a false god. And that's the God you choose, and that's the God you're going to have. That is the very truth of what I'm saying to you right now. That's why I put this in the chat, so you can look at it. It's the Hebrew word in Strong's, H1167. Go look it up for yourself. The Hebrew inscription is actually right there. So you find it yourself. And so, did you know that that also matches Revelation 18? Let's look at Revelation 18 and let's just see what it will be. I try to be really quiet in here and be cooperative a little bit. Everybody has their own space here. You're told. And I'm looking for, it's probably in Revelation 17, sorry. Yeah, right here. Come hither, Revelation 17:1, and I will show thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. I will show you why she is favored here in a moment. Revelation 17:2, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have made drunk by the wine of her fornication. So she carried away in the spirit. He carried me, Yahuwah carried me away the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast. This matches the well-favored harlot. In Nahum 3:4, I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast. It's not going to be like a bear, like you see a bear or anything like that, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. If you blaspheme the Most High like most Christians do, you'll have no problem with this woman, this well-favored harlot. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet. That's why she's well-favored. She's well-adorned, well-dressed, and full of all good things of the earth. And that's going to lead to decked with gold, precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And so we could continue on to Revelation 17. I think you could go over this yourself. Just get a feel to why Nahum 3:4 matches Revelation 17 and Mystery Babylon and the Great Whore. That's why when I see the United States holding the world reserve currency, still, the dollar has not been dethroned by the BRICS Alliance currency yet, or by China's yen, or by Russia's ruble. You see how well favored the United States is in the current battle of the currency. That's one. You see how people look upon the United States. They have historically, in the last 70 or 80 years, looked at it as the world superpower and the lone superpower. But now that our skirts are being lifted over our head, and ammunition is almost out, oil reserves are almost out, gas prices are going up, and that'll soon run out, and it will only be used in emergency supply for public use by the government for the purposes of defense and war. All that's in there. But let me ask you a question, given all that. Do churches care to discuss this matter under 501c3? What do you think? Because I'm going to show you some things about why nothing ever happens from the pulpit of a church, because they speak nothing of it and do nothing about it. The Constantinian Creed, established by the Council of Nicaea, is this. This Constantine Creed is a decree of genocide against Palestinian Hebrews like myself. I'm going to read it in full, and I'm going to let you absorb it. The link is in the chat as you follow along near the top. And I added other items in the chat already. I renounce all customs, rites, legalisms. That is, preaching of the Ten Commandments, the law, that I renounce all of it. Unleavened bread and sacrifices of lambs of the Hebrews, that is the Passover. All the other feasts of the Hebrews, like the Feast of Pentecost, which is also known as the Shavuot, the Feast of Tabernacles, sacrifices, prayers, aspirations, purifications, sanctifications, and propitiations, and fast and new moons and Sabbaths. So no rest for you. You're a slave. That Sabbath is such a yoke to bear when it was meant to be restful and spiritually refreshing. And superstitions and hymns and chants and observances in synagogues and absolutely everything they call Jewish, every law, rite, and custom, and afterward I shall wish to deny. And watch this. This is where I get in trouble. I'm not Jewish. I'm a Hebrew, just obeying the scriptures. But somehow this applies to me. And this is something that High Point Austin pastor Dr. Juan R. Sanchez knows is in here. Once you join Christianity and renounce Yahushua Messiah and decide you're going to follow the pagan rites of the Christians, Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving's a pagan holiday, by the way. It's another form of penance that the Catholics impose upon you, by the way. And the other holidays are the eating of ham, pig. So you better eat that pig, because watch this, once you turn away from it and you discover you've been in error, Constantine says, and if afterwards I shall wish to deny and return to Jewish superstition and shall be found eating with Jews. Paul never said to Peter not to eat with them. He said, don't just eat with them only, or feasting with them, or secretly conversing and condemning the Christian religion, instead of openly confuting them and condemning their vain faith, and let the trembling of Cain and the leprosy of Gehazi cleave to me, as well as the legal punishments to which I acknowledge myself liable. And may I be an anathema in the world to come, and may my soul be set down with Satan and the devils. Credited to Stefano Essamani, Acta Sanctorum Martyrum Orientalium ad Accidentalium, Volume 1, Rome, 1748, page 105. So it's cited. Pretty exciting, huh? It means goes back to Maccabees 4. You got to look at Maccabees 4 and talk about how the Hebrews went before Antiochus of Epiphanes, Antiochus Epiphanes, for the same reason. There was a father and a mother of a Hebrew family with all the children. They were all proposed. Eat the pork and you will live. Do not eat the pork and you shall die. You need to think about that. When you say, I believe in a Christian religion, the Christian religion is exactly what Constantine said. Exclude the Jews, but really it's the Hebrews. Don't even openly confute them and condemn their vain faith. Okay, so you can't talk to them. You exclude them, and that's what Galatians chapter 4 said. Paul said, these people will exclude you that you may desire to be with them. But the Christian religion is a mixed up religion that is not based on the New Testament or the Old, and denies the Old Testament. But all it does is put in vain traditions like Constantine's pagan holidays of Easter and Christmas, Thanksgiving, national federal holidays, which mean nothing to Christ, and that's adding to the gospel right there. This whole Constantine Creed, Dr. Juan R. Sanchez of High Point, Austin, High Point Baptist Austin says, any add to the gospel, but he's adding to the gospel by its replacement theology by adding Christmas and Easter and Thanksgiving, taking out the feast days of the Hebrews that were meant for us, putting in the paganism, and saying you need to take in all Roman customs. And the punishments, he already said it. You're going to be tortured. All the bad things are going to happen to you. And how much different is this, although shorter, is this different than the Jesuit oath of 1533? You better start thinking about that too if you know about the Jesuits. Right. Now, that means in this Constantinian Creed that you must make a vow to Caesar. You must say, Hail Caesar. Any Roman emperor I'm just checking my cue again. Any emperor was called Caesar, and you hail Caesar, whether he was Claudius, who was mentioned in the book of Acts, Caligula later on in history, or maybe right after or before him. I don't remember all the dates of some of the emperors I knew were crazy. Caligula was an emperor who attempted to make people commit suicide on themselves by just humiliating them and doing such things. And thank you for everybody who is on chat listening to this presentation. We're talking about trafficking, but we're getting there slowly because I got to talk to you about why churches don't care about the issue and they just tell you just preach the gospel, and we don't get involved in anything else. Now, the article from Substack is the first article listed, the Constantinian Creed the next. I have listed some scriptures, but I also meant to put in, and that's going to be at the bottom of the chat at this point in the video, a 501c3 charter from Cornell Law, which I got very familiar with as a tax professional. Okay, so the Cornell, in Section 26 of the U.S. Code, under 501c3, the following organizations are referred to in subsection A: any corporation organized under Act of Congress, which is an instrumentality of the United States, but only of such a corporation. Watch this, it's an instrumentality of the United States, and it's a corporation. You are an instrument and a tool of the United States government when you do this, and that's why they get the funding, that's why they get the grants, that's why they can achieve tax-exempt status, which is Section A, Section B of 501c1. Corporation, and this is the 501c3 here, because I just read you 501c1, skip 501c2, 501c3 in Cornell Law School. Corporations and any community chest, fund, or foundation organized and operated exclusively for religious, charitable, scientific, testing for public safety, literary, or educational purposes, or to foster national or international amateur sports competition, but only of no part involves the provision of athletic facilities or equipment, or for the prevention of cruelty to children and animals. No part of the net earnings of which inures to the benefit of any private shareholder or individual. No substantial part of the activities which is carrying on propaganda. Now, you can tell that Trump is using the MAGA churches to foment propaganda, but why haven't they lost their tax-exempt status? Why did their pastors like Robert Jeffries, First Baptist Dallas, Jack Graham of Prestonwood Baptist near Dallas? What about so-called deceased Senator Lindsey Graham, who's also a Southern Baptist? What about Speaker Mike Johnson, who's also a Southern Baptist? What about Attorney General Ken Paxton, who's also a Southern Baptist, why do they get to spread the propaganda? Why do they get to use their churches to spread the propaganda? They have nothing to do with the gospel. They are promoting a new world order that you're going to be surprised is going to be you MAGA people are deceived. You people who side with Trump are deceived. But see, this is the part of it, not only the propaganda and the 501c3, but otherwise attempting to influence legislation, except as otherwise provided in subsection H, by which does not participate or intervene in, including the publishing, distributing of statements, any political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to any candidate for public office. Yet, Trump can show up in Robert Jeffress' church and make a speech about go get the vote, but would they put Barry Obama in his church, and would Obama then come and encourage their congregation to vote then? No. That's why it is unfair to have any political candidate in any church even making a campaign speech just to go out and get the vote, because the guy that they want you to vote for is sitting right there in the pulpit. And that's the same thing in the Old Testament. A king was not supposed to go into the high place of the Most High. That was for the high priest only. But when you have a political candidate entering a sanctuary in a church, is akin to a king entering the temple of the Most High, the place of the most holy place. I'm not going to go to section H, but see, you could see why, Democrats do it too, but we're talking about who's in office right now and why Trump can tell these pastors what propaganda to spread, and even having, his religious advisor is Paula White, who is immoral, godless, and greedy. And yet, you vote for MAGA, and even after you vote for MAGA and spew your Calvinist Reformed theology, and you make videos about why Paula White is an apostate, you all join in on the same cause. That's where your hypocrisy is going to be unveiled on the day of judgment, and you're all going to be lost. We're all lost. We're all lost. I'm not afraid to say you're all lost, believe me. And if anybody has anything to chat, I'd like to see your comments in chat, or after the chat's over, if you have just come on after and watched it, please make a comment in the general comment section. Okay, so you're understanding why I'm trying to get into gangstalking, trafficking, because under 501c3, anything you say against the government is anti-government, and therefore you could lose your 501c3. So pastors don't speak against anything about what the government's doing, because that violates 501c3, but you're supposed to speak against immorality, injustice, and godlessness. Yet you're looking to a man to make your life better and make it easier for you to exercise your religious freedoms. And it's just like what I talked about when the gang stalked and harassed who don't want to depend on Christ, or even those who say they do, turn around and beg a worldly ruler to make their life better. All you're doing is begging Baal to be one of his Baalah. You're begging Baal, the prince of demons. You're begging Baal to be one of his mistresses. And that's exactly what you are. And you ought to be ashamed of it. But you have no shame. Book of Jeremiah chapter 11 said, you have no shame. You have no shame. That's why pastors have to overlook when the government wants to use a mega church or any church for so-called community watcher purposes. You must participate. Although the church ought to have, according to what they say they believe in a Messiah or Christ, should have nothing to do with anything from the government. But now, when the government says, I want to use your church, I want to use your congregation to perform community watching and community services, now you're on the hook. But now it's okay to take that government money, and the pastor will overlook what's going on, and you can talk to your pastor all you want about, I'm being stalked, I'm being trafficked, people are threatening me. Your pastor's just going to call you paranoid because he knows what's going on. He's going to do nothing. Paul Begley ain't going to help you either because he doesn't really believe in that. He doesn't never talk about it. Stephen Ben Noon ain't going to help you because he never really talks about it. He only talks about it when people bring up the questions, but then when it's time to clear the questions, he goes right back to amillennialism, Augustinianism, Catholic, Puritans. They all overlook the evil that was done to natives hundreds of years ago and all the genocide. You don't talk about the Lewis and Clark expeditions, which led to the slaughter of 750 million buffalo after their expeditions were over. They paved the way for clearing out of wildlife and lots of trees, and they were going to make a path further out west. And that's exactly what they did. But see, you can't call Lewis and Clark evil like I can, because I know the truth and you don't want to know the truth. That's why, don't you think they trafficked too? Don't you think natives were trafficked by the Puritans or slaughtered or genocided out? Well, your Calvinist puritanical theology or your dispensational theology will excuse the genocide of Palestinians, and even if you condemn the genocide of Palestinians, you don't condemn the genocide of Native Indians. And even if you do that, well, my life's better than theirs, so that's okay. I'm prospering, God is blessing me, and blah, blah, blah. It's hypocrisy. It's hypocrisy. I won't go for any of it. Again, I'm going to talk about Nahum 3:4-10, that it's clear in conjunction with Revelation 17, because of the multitude of the whoredoms of the well-favored harlot, the mistress of witchcrafts, the Baalah, that selleth nations through her whoredoms and families through her witchcrafts. You sell off nations. Well, that's what the United States does. They conquer lands in Africa. They conquer South American, Colombia, Venezuela, whoever. And then they get the oil. They conquer Afghanistan and Iraq, and they get the oil. They conquer other nations for rare earth minerals or for diamonds or for silver, for mining, for extraction, and so on and so forth. That's selling off nations. And then how much slave labor do you know goes on around the world in these countries by United States military? The military is it's not a defense force. It's imperialism and worldwide slavery, and Christian missions helps out the cause just well enough through their programs as a front for military invasion. And that's what Billy Graham was used for, and that's what most Christian mission organizations are used for today. Why do you think you don't hear about much martyrdom around the world of such American Christian missionaries? Because they're protected by the military, and the military has backing upon them because they know they're going to get to conquer the other nations and tell them we're better than you. And that's the stance upon which the United States has for years been able to be established as the world reserve currency. The dollar, that's fixing to end. It's going to end. So they sell off nations and then families through her witchcrafts. Well, you get into the family unit, you cause the breakdown of the family so that they'll be subservient to you. That's what they did in the Roman Empire. And that's what they do today. It's no different. You can't, and a lot of people get into organized stalking because they say, I'm taking care of my family. I'm getting the gift cards. I'm feeding my family. I'm paying my bills. I don't know any other way to go, so I'm going to go this way. It's a long-term career. I know for sure they've assured me I'll always have. Wait till China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea and other nations invade the United States. Wait till a nuke gets sent to this country and destroys your town. Then tell me you've got full assurance that everything will be all right. Families are sold through witchcraft, and this is the Greek word for sorcery and the Hebrew word kesem match in this passage. And this is pharmakia, so through drugs, big pharma. Families are sold in this country and around the world through the big pharma death machine by the Rockefellers and by the medical industry. And people are not getting well, they're getting sicker every day, taking out the natural cures and putting big money into so-called big pharma research. This is why you took the jabberoni. This is why you gave into the agenda. Because ultimately, I'm going to tell you, when you speak out against the issue, when you try to do something about it, and you ain't got enough backup, you're not going to be able to carry out without Yehovah, the Father of lights, in whom there is no variation nor shadow of turning. James 1:17. By his Son Yahusha, who shed his blood for you and died for your sins. But why churches won't do anything is because they've got grants, they've got other government funding. They get to establish themselves as an organization, yet still call themselves a church, because guess what? Most every church in the United States is a 501c3 government recognized organization. Not a house of worship, but an arm. I showed it to you, and I erased it, but I showed you earlier that early on when we talked about this section 26 under 501, 26-501, it talked about the church, among many organizations, being an extension of the government. And you won't believe it. Let's go to the court. All you got to do is just click the Cornell website. It says, and I'm looking for it again, exemption, considered an organization in order to be exempt from income taxes. Section C says under 501c1, any corporation organized under an act of Congress which is an instrumentality of the United States, but only if such corporation is exempt from federal income taxes. And then it goes on. So all the things you do to become exempt from federal taxation requires you to be an instrumentality of the United States, and that is the government, that is the military industrial complex, and that is even of the political wings in this country. So you're used as a hire for whore. Deuteronomy 23:17 through 19, you need to read it. That to make yourself a whore for hire, just to participate in gangstalking, just to participate in trafficking, and make yourself look normal in society, and the lending of usury upon usury. Usury is a loan with interest, or using your garment as a pledge for interest. And so therefore, you see, when your pastor approaches you and your congregation and says, we need to build a new building, and we need to raise as much money as we can so we can approach the bank and tell the bank we got the down payment. And then what has your pastor done? He's done exactly what it says right here. He's placed you under usury. You're under usury because now you're on the hook for continuing to tithe, and then your pastor tells you you're not tithing enough. You agreed to this building. You made an oath, just like the 501c3 designation is an oath to be an arm of the government, as I've already said. And now your pastor says, you can't back out of this now. You agreed to it. You got to tithe. And Yahushua said in Matthew 5:33, again you have heard that it was said of old, you shall not swear falsely, but perform your oath to the Yehovah, to Adonai. Adonai. So you shall not swear falsely if you perform your oath to Adonai. But when you swear falsely, you're not able to perform your oath to Adonai. And that's why he said, do not swear at all, neither by heaven, for it is God, the throne of Alua, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And therefore do not swear by your head, because you cannot make one hair white or black, but let your yes be yes and your no, no, for whatever is more than these is from the evil one. Yet, when you take on a church membership, you agree only to that church. You agree to even do everything that pastor tells you without question, no matter what seems wrong about what he's saying. Just trust the pastor. He's leading you into smooth waters, and he certainly wouldn't deceive you, would he? Would he? Well, I had that experience with, I'm going to keep on saying it, with High Point Baptist, Austin, Texas pastor Dr. Juan R. Sanchez, and never realized how many years he was involved in my attempted trafficking and organized stalking. Because the goal of this is to make you one of them and to make you submit to anything that even if you offer yourself for sexual submission to them, whether you're male or female, it's just to get you corrected. It's just there to get you on the right path. I'm sorry we had to do this, son, but I did this in the military too. We could just as well do it in the church because it's all regulated by the government. Oh, sure, that sounds good. Well, so did the Roman emperors. They were rapists. They were all the other things. And how many sex cases in the Southern Baptist Convention were there really? Just 700? Or were there many thousands of times more that will never be revealed on the day of judgment? So that at least we say 700, it doesn't seem as bad as it really is. And I hear other YouTubers talk about how, and this has happened to me too, that a pastor and his wife, or a husband and a wife who's a church leader, or he's a YouTube Bible teacher, all of a sudden going to tell you, give up your power of attorney and let us have it. Well, that's what Sanchez tried to do to me. He tried to get power of attorney over me. He tried to acquire and obtain it through the church membership. And pastors have been doing it and will continue to do it at breakneck speed. That's why they're going to do nothing about it, because they're involved in it. They're involved in the imperialism. They're involved in the spread of war, disease, and death. They advocated the stabberoonie. And you suckered for it. You are a sucker for it. It's your problem, not mine. You're not going where I'm going. We're going to be in different places, folks, on the day of judgment, and yours is not good. Yours is bad, mine's good. I'm with Yahushua, you're not. You denied him, I didn't. It's your problem. In Jeremiah 6:30, which I think is on here. And if it's not, I'm going to get it on here. I'm going to put it in the chat. Reprobate silver. Yeah, it's in here. I'll read it. They're all grievous revolters, walking with slanderers. They are brass and iron. They are all corrupters. Reprobate silver shall they be called, because Yahuwah has rejected them. Reprobate silver is just like what Judas acquired when he betrayed Yahusha to be crucified. And just think of this too. Jeremiah 7 then continues to talk about pagan idolatry going on in the temple. And that's why Jeremiah 7:4 itself says, try to get this right. And I'm just going to, not the temple, trust ye not in lying words, saying, the temple of Yahuwah, the temple of Yahuwah, the temple of Yahuwah are these. This is the same thing with your church. We're here in church. And then in verse 8 it says, behold, ye trust in lying words that cannot profit. Will you steal? Will you murder? Will you commit adultery and swear falsely? There it is again, swear falsely, and burn incense unto Baal, and walk after other gods whom ye know not. And then in verse 10, come and stand before me in this house which is called by my name, and say, we are delivered to do all these abominations. This is to say, because you have a temple and you name my name, but you do all the other abominations to the other gods, you say we are permitted to do all these abominations because we're in here. But we're doing this unto you, but we're using that name over there. And that's why in verse 11 it says, in this house which ye called by my name become a den of robbers in your eyes. Behold, I have seen it, saith Yahuwah. Well, that's what churches do today. It's like, we got this building in your name. In fact, we're building a new building and a better one. Will you not accept this? Well, surely, if we still sin against you by siding with the government, by allowing snitches to remain in our congregation, wouldn't that make our congregation safer? If we have community watchers, doesn't that make our church safer? Even if some of our members do have to be caught up in the morass of all the harassment, well, surely we're doing what the book of Romans says in Romans 13, obey every ordinance of man's law. Did that say to now that Yahushua was betrayed, that now we are permitted to do these abominations to others because now we're in a new dispensation after the cross? So Christ obeys the law perfectly so that we don't have to obey it anymore. We can do whatever we want. We can do what Roman customs dictate doing, or AKA what maritime law says you can do. That's Revelation 18. Those that made their living at the sea, right? Those who make their living off of the sea, aka Navy, container shipping, other activities that require flotation vessels like boats, ships, aka anything the United States Navy would use or CMA CGM would use. Now that's permitted because we're Christians and we believe in the Bible and we know better than you what to do with your land. That's what they did to the Philippines when they still had custody of Hawaii and dealt in sugar cane. Imperials came over to them and said, "We are Christians and we know what to do with your sugar cane. And if you cooperate with us, we'll give you some of the profits and we'll have share in this." And before you know it, you got a bunch of Filipinos becoming their slaves, and then they turn around and take over everything by force when they came in with peace. And that's what gangstalkers do too. They come with peace, but in their heart, they're raging inside to accomplish what they've been told to do. By the way, did you not ever know that the first degree oath of the Mason Lodge is to deny that you have light and you're looking for light? But you say you're a believer in Christ, or aka a Christian, and you just denied your faith when you took that first degree oath, and then you take all the other oaths that are blasphemous. Need I say more? And that's a lot. When you get in gangstalking, you're gonna take this first degree oath as a male, and as a female, you're gonna take the initiation rites for an Eastern Star. You're going to do it. You will surely do it. And if you bring your whole family into the program, you will surely turn them all to evil ways. And you become a snitch, and you get nosy and invasive of people's space, privacy. All the while you say you believe in the First Amendment and other people, but you only believe in your freedom. Because somebody else's freedom is getting in the way of yours. It's all rooted in hypocrisy. And it's all the gall of bitterness and the bond of iniquity rest upon you, according to Acts chapter 8. When you take an oath like that, a bloody oath, that's what the gall of bitterness is. And that's what you're in. Because you have to do something you know is wrong, but somehow you justify it. That's what creates the gall of bitterness, because the person you're doing harm to will not do those things, and you're falsely accusing them of something they say the government says to you they did that they did not do. That's why gang stalking and trafficking kind of go together. And the average person, even in corporate America, doesn't know they're being trafficked. Sports professionals don't know they're being trafficked. It's just the contract makes it look legitimate, but what's happening is you're signing an oath not to play for another team or not to play another sport besides the sport you've got the contract for. Like if you're a baseball player, you can't then, unless you're Deion Sanders, you can't then agree to go play football and baseball and then try to play basketball. You know, even if the season no longer overlaps, which they always will from one to another. So you've taken some kind of an oath and signed some kind of a contract. And when you're in stalking and you advance, you get to GS12, GS15 salary range, and you're officially a government employee who's going to receive retirement benefits and such. And that's why you think you're taking care of your family, because it's government sanctioned, and you self-legitimate your evil behavior because you're taking care of your family, and you're not taking care of your family. You're actually setting them up for harm in the future. It's a dangerous enterprise you should never get involved in. And I've already said, if you're gang stalked and you haven't turned over to them yet, without Yahushua Messiah, you're going to turn to them. And there's a lot more I could say about this, but I guess, I don't want to be more than an hour here, but I don't see any comments in the chat. But I hope that kind of gives you. Oh, by the way, I did want to show you Stop Baptist Predators website is here in the chat box. Take a click at that if you're looking at the chat replay. I've set it up to where you can see the chat replay. Stop Baptist Predators. Yeah, they're involved in sex crimes and sex abuse by clergy and elders and deacons. This is a good website to give you a little bit of overview that this 700 sex cases is a lot worse than even the news could ever tell it, because they're hiding a whole lot. And major leaders that you always known and love are involved in the cover-ups and in the scandal. There's a lot of good information on this website, stopbaptistpredators.org. Go look it up. It's going to help you. It's going to confirm that you're not a crazy person. It's going to show you need to just get out and quit going to their churches. You need to get out, stop denying Yahushua Messiah, quit naming the name Jesus, because I've already told you about the slave ship of Jesus of Lubeck. Get off that ship, get back on land, quit being slave traded, quit submitting to things you know are wrong, and do not sit well with your conscience. Quit destroying your conscience and rise and be aware of righteousness. I will stop right there, and I hope that helps you. Please make any comments and any questions you might have. Please make a comment in the general section, as the chat is now going to be ended, and so is the stream. Blessings to you. Signing out. Shalom.